Hey, it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about Wayfarer, which is the second book in the Passenger duology by Alexandra Bracken. So first we're going to go with the non-spoilers. I gave this book an 8.5 out of 10, and this was one of the really rare occasions in which I felt satisfied at the end of a duology. Like, a lot of times the first book will be super great, and then you get the second one finally, and it's really disappointing, and kind of it feels like it could have all been one book, but they wanted to stretch it out and ended up making it a letdown and a lot less energetic and full of life than the first one. But Alexandra Bracken did not do that. She really just took this plot all kinds of ways that I could never even imagine. If you haven't read Passenger yet, I would really recommend it. It involves pirates, time travel, and all sorts of other fun things. And I mean, I've read a lot of different books about time travel before. I mean, I love the Missing series that starts with Found by Margaret Peterson Haddix and all kinds of other things. But I think that Alexandra Bracken with this one did a great job of kind of explaining how the time travel worked. And she came up with reasons why certain things could and couldn't happen. And I think, like, with something like time travel, where we're always discussing, like, is or isn't this possible, and would there be paradoxes, and, well, this is why time travel wouldn't work, and if we went back and stopped someone from shooting Lincoln, then how would we know to go back? And she did a really good job of explaining, well, this is why, and this is the things that you have to do, and time won't allow you to create paradoxes, and this is how it does so. And if you're a person who likes fantasy that's logical, it was so nice. It was really well written. I think I did like the first book in this series a little bit better, just because the way this one was written, because of the plot, it was kind of disjointed, and I think it was very intentional, and it was because of the way it was written, and they were kind of hopping around a lot and trying to find each other and things like that, with Etta and Nick, who, if you remember from the end of Passenger, were separated. Etta was shot, and that's it. So in the course of the book, all the different characters that we're seeing are kind of trying to figure out ways to get to each other through the different like, kind of time streams that they can travel through. And it's really, they're kind of just going all over the place and traveling a lot, and it's really interesting because you get to see a lot of different environments, and it's awesome. But it also, it's a lot of action, especially if you aren't reading a lot of action books and you're used to more dialogue filled, which there is dialogue obviously, but there's just kind of a lot going on. So that was a little bit hard for me to wrap my mind around, especially because I'm not a person who pictures when I read. But it was still a really fulfilling book, and I really loved it. I loved getting to see more of Etta and Nicholas kind of like going into themselves and kind of being on their own, and, you know, figuring out where they stood, and just all of it. Alexandra Bracken is really great, and I haven't read the Darkest Minds series yet, but this definitely made me really excited to finally get there, and I think it's going to be really good. So that's going to be it for the non-spoilery section. If you haven't read this book yet, don't keep watching. Go read the book, though. It's great. I would totally recommend it. Alrighty, here we go with the spoilers. So I wasn't ready for this book to end. I genuinely was so upset, and the ending was perfect. So it was nothing where I needed more to feel satisfied. Just like, I wanted more. It was a great ending, but I wanted to see more. I wanted to see Nick living with Etta in New York and her family, and getting to see her mom and dad like back together, and like living with her as like a unit, and her mom kind of treating her as an adult more than she ever had, because she had finally trusted her, and just kind of, I would have loved to see Nicholas get to live in a world where he has more of a say and is able to be a real person. And obviously, racism is still an issue, and our world right now is not perfect, and like he wouldn't have been treated as well as I wish. But as compared to a time that he came from, it would have been so nice to see him like being able to vote and like have rights and like have a job and not being able to worry about like, oh, I could never get that because of my race. Like, it's all these possibilities that he never would have considered. Oh, like he's just such a hard worker and such a determined and driven character, and I want to see him be able to receive the world that he so deserves, because I really love him, and I love him and Etta, and I would love to see more of them. Alrighty, I'm still really upset about Alice, and I'm really conflicted, because it's like, there's a happy ending, which is great, but Alice is still gone, and I'm still really upset about that, even though that was one of the first things that happened. But because we got to know her later in like a river song type way, her death upsets me in retrospect, and I'm just really frustrated because like, Alice, man. So I really like the ending. I wish there could have been a way for Alice to not have died, but also like being realistic in a series like this, like someone is gonna end up dying, and that's kind of just like what needs to happen sometimes for things to be realistic. So, you know, it's, you win some, you lose some. I like it. Julian being alive was a very interesting twist, because that's kind of like the first thing that comes to mind whenever you're reading a book or a series and it says, oh, this person died, like when you're reading Cinder and you're like, but did they really? So like in passing I was like, maybe he's not dead, but I didn't, after like the whole first book, I hadn't expected that to actually come to fruition. Like I thought that like he was actually dead, and then he wasn't, and all this time he had been letting Nicholas take the rap for his death, which like, I mean, he didn't know, but also like he knew his grandfather, so he definitely should have known, especially with the disdain already felt for Nicholas. But it was really cool, and I'm hoping that in that future that we got at the end of Wayfarer, Nicholas and Julian kind of did reconcile, and Julian realized that he was an ass because he stood by while people treated his brother like crap because of his race. So I'm hoping that like some of everything that happened got through to him, and that like they can be more of like real brothers now. I'm really excited for Sophia, because I feel like she really figured out who she was and spoke about, like, I mean, she came out, which was amazing, you go girl, and also just kind of realizing that she doesn't need all of these things, like just because it's what would be nice. Yes, it would be nice to have grandfather's approval, and it would be nice to have the security of being married to Julian and being the head of the family, but like that's not for her, and she figured that out, and like now she's kind of like got together, and she really like came into herself, and I think like losing her eye and everything, which obviously was horrible, but it like everything that happened kind of like, I feel like made her realize who she was and like what was important about herself. So I don't know, I would love like an epilogue where we get to see them in a couple years, and like they're all happy, and like Nicholas is maybe in college or working or whatever floats his boat, and Sophia is like, I don't know, the head of a company or something, like a really successful company, and she's got like a super cool like model wife or something, and Etta and Nicholas have like a cute little apartment, and she's a famous violinist, and they have dinner with her parents and Sophia every weekend, and Julian comes, and like whenever they all have kids, Julian babysits them because he's like the perpetual ladies' man until he's not, and then he gets married and has kids, but then everybody else's kids are grown up, so they could take care of his kids. I don't know. I would like that. I would love to see more of like in the future once everything is settled. I just, this book, man. I definitely cried in the final scene when Etta's family showed up at the recital, and it was kind of like she had just like come to this like acceptance of like, I'm alone in the world. This is it. Like, that's there's nobody else but me, and I'm kind of gonna have to reconcile myself with the fact that everyone I've ever loved is gone from me now. They're either dead or trapped in the past of some sort. And then they're there, and she's playing this piece, and she just gets more passionate and like so like glows and like comes back to life when she sees them there, and like the way it's her mom and then her dad and then Nicholas, and like this whole time she'd been hoping, but then it had been too long, so she figured it wasn't real, and he had just been taking all this time waiting to get to her until he had like found her parents and everything, which like obviously took a lot of time and effort because they were in completely different eras. And it was just, it was really wonderful, and it makes me really sad to, like happy sad to think about now. And it was really good, and a magical, very full circle kind of ending that just like gave it a really complete feeling that I'm not, I finished a lot of series and I'm missing something, and I didn't feel like that with this one. So it was really great. I definitely recommend it. Check it out. Thanks so much for watching.